This is an isopod. And today we're going to be talking about why isopods are cool as heck. Now, before we get started, it's important to understand that every isopod that you see in this video is a little different than your average isopod. And that's not totally accurate. In substance, they're essentially the same, but their habitat does differ from the average isopod that you might find underneath a log, underneath a rock. See, every isopod in this video lives in a closed glass terrarium where they're destined to live out their lives in a self-sufficient ecosystem, complete with food, water, predators, and of course, the oxygen they need to survive, courtesy of the various plants within these glass walls. It might seem like a restrictive enclosure, but I'm not so sure they care. See, they have everything they need to survive. Even if their tiny brains could comprehend something as complex as quality of life, they probably wouldn't be disappointed. In some ways, this closed environment has its advantages over their usual habitat. These isopods, in this example, were taken out of the northern forests of the Midwest, where they have to endure or die during the deep cold of January and February, with temperatures dropping into the -20, -30, -40 degrees Fahrenheit. These isopods missed out on this last winter. Instead, they stayed indoors at temperatures in the 50s and 60s. Does that mess with their internal calendar? Maybe. Probably. But then again, this species, the rough woodlouse, can be found in many climates, some of which don't have much for winters at all, at least what I would consider a winter, with temperatures barely, if ever, dropping below 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius. Isopods can be found all around the world. They live in temperate, arid, and tropical environments. Additionally, isopods can also be found underwater. These terrestrial isopods that live on land, are closely related to both freshwater and saltwater varieties of isopods. Now, these terrestrial isopods that many of us have probably seen at some point in our lives, they go by many names. I've just been referring to them as isopods, but they go by many other names such as roly-polies, potato bugs, sow bugs, wood lice, pill bugs, and about 1,000 other nicknames specific to certain cultures or regions. Most people have seen these before, hidden underneath a log, a heavy rock, alongside other insects like centipedes, millipedes, ants. But, well, hold on a second. If we're going to be accurate here, isopods actually aren't insects. They're actually crustaceans. Interesting fact, the aquatic flavor of isopods, they breathe through gills, just like so many other aquatic animals. But the same is also true for terrestrial isopods. They need a moist, human environment to breathe and survive. It doesn't mean that they have to be in an environment with 100% humidity all the time. They can maintain some amount of moisture around their bodies for a short period of time. But this closed ecosystem, which some might see as restrictive or too small, is actually ideal for these creatures. Because of the closed nature, it's generally always around or at 100% relative humidity inside. It's a perfect environment to meet this requirement for moisture. There's no doubt that isopods are one of the most popular animals that inhabit these terrariums. Isopods and springtails make up the 1-2 punch cleaning crew that are so often pressed into service to eat crap that other bugs don't want to eat. Here you can see one working on an old piece of dead wood. That's one of their favorite foods. They also enjoy dead leaves, but most frequently in this terrarium, they can be seen grazing on the moss. They have a preference for some moss varieties, which they keep trimmed very short, but strangely enough, they seem to ignore other varieties. As you've already seen, the isopods are actually not the only critters in this glass oasis. The aforementioned springtails can be seen darting around everywhere. They're currently actually the most common animal, at least the most common animal that's visible to the naked eye within this terrarium. They live in a mostly peaceful coexistence with the other inhabitants, though sometimes isopods will chase them off. The centipedes, which are the main predator in this terrarium, will target these springtails. Here's a shot of one grabbing a springtail and hurrying back to its lair, probably under this carpet of moss. Adult isopods rarely, if ever, face such a fate from centipedes, at least in this terrarium. Other climates and other biomes certainly could have much larger centipedes, but their hard shells protect them from such attacks from these smaller centipedes. Baby isopods, on the other hand, are absolutely prone to centipede attacks. And speaking of baby centipedes, or baby isopods, I'm not entirely sure how many generations of isopods are in this terrarium, at least 2 or 3, but young isopods are fairly uncommon to see, and I wonder to what extent centipedes are to blame. They are an important piece of this ecosystem. They serve an important role of population control for springtails, for isopods, and for other insects. Millipedes, on the other hand, are a much more peaceful neighbor. These majestic creatures also primarily feed on dead stuff in this terrarium, just like springtails and just like isopods when they're in the mood. There's at least 2 species of millipedes in here. This one right here is the larger of the 2 species, but still is relatively small compared to some other millipede species in warmer climates. This one maxes out at about 1 inch in length. These millipedes tend to be averse to light and are rarely seen during the day, or during the day for this terrarium, which is when the artificial light turns on. Actually, that's the case for most of the creatures in here. Millipedes, centipedes, and even some of the isopods tend to come out in number when the artificial light source goes dark, but when it turns on, a lot of them will scurry away. Snails are my personal favorite of this terrarium. They're slow, as you can see. Like many of their roommates, they primarily munch on plant matter and detritus. They don't really eat much for organic matter outside of something that is plant-based. I'm honestly not sure if these snails have any predators in this terrarium. The centipedes, maybe, but I'm not sure if the centipedes have an appetite for snails. And besides, there's quite a few small snails snailing around at any given moment. Most are small, with their shells being about a 1/4 inch in diameter or smaller. The largest snail, one that was nearly 1 inch in diameter, died at some point over the winter months. His or her death was sad when I made that discovery, but such is life in this terrarium and such is life in the wild. And I'm fairly certain that the environment wasn't the cause of its death, or at least not the primary cause, since the snail population evidently continues to thrive. This large snail, its shell remains on the forest floor, if you will, of this terrarium, and will continue to serve as an important source of minerals such as calcium for future generations of snails, though it will also benefit the isopod as their chitinous backs are rich in calcium. They need it to make their hard shells. This remarkable process of recycling nutrients, gases, and other key elements to life is not unlike the same process that occurs around the entirety of the Earth, albeit at a much, much, much smaller scale. For example, an isopod will graze on a piece of moss. Their body gains energy from this, partly due to bacteria in their digestive tract that breaks down the cellulose that serves as structure for nearly every plant, including the moss. This is converted into some sort of an energy store, generally glucose or something similar. In humans, it would be something like glycogen, if not fat. This energy store is then eventually used by the isopod for energy to move around, to kind of complete its normal activities during the day, or just to keep itself alive. During that process of using that energy store, cellular respiration occurs, and water and carbon dioxide are created as a result. This water is expelled, and the carbon dioxide exits via respiration, where it's then used by plants, such as moss, to create glucose and cellulose, which helps the plant grow and store energy, respectively. Oxygen gas is produced as a byproduct of this, which the animals, including isopods, then use to conduct cellular respiration and stay alive. This process is repeated over and over again, and no input from the outside world is required, save for some form of light that allows the plants to conduct photosynthesis. A similar process of recycling occurs with all the other important building blocks for life inside of this terrarium, though obviously the exact ingredients and outputs in the chemical equations differ vastly for something like a nitrogen or calcium-based product as opposed to oxygen, carbon dioxide, water, and glucose. It's an amazing process. And by the way, there's other critters in here too that we haven't even talked about yet. Earthworms spend their days and nights snaking through the soil, and yes, they also eat, you guessed it, primarily dead organic matter. Here's a small beetle that beetles its way around all day, taking its time with no real destination in mind. And there's much more in this terrarium that I haven't covered in this video. But back to the isopod. Isopods have experienced a surge in popularity in recent years. Many people have decided that they make great pets, not unlike keeping a pet snake, a pet snail, a pet fish. Small businesses, especially online, have popped up selling both common and more exotic species of isopods. You can order species like with names like dairy cows or rubber ducks, each with their own unique coloring, behavior, and other characteristics. They're fairly easy to keep. A terrarium like this is one option, but many others will forego the closed nature of this terrarium and instead keep them in containers with holes for air circulation, and forego plants and other roommates, save for sometimes springtails, which means all you need to worry about is their substrate, the moisture level, some shelter, and feeding them the right kinds of food. There's more to it than that. I'm probably oversimplifying it. But as far as pets go, they're fairly low maintenance and fascinating to watch. And if this still sounds too weird to you or too nerdy for you, well, I would like to remind you that you're 8, 9, 10 minutes into watching a video about isopods. So I think it's time for you to admit that isopods are cool as heck. And terrariums too. This is a newer channel dedicated to terrariums, so I'd appreciate if you like this video, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.